I was a good child. My parents beat it into me that I would be a good child. And one of the ways that that would happen is that anytime money need be spent on something that might be considered frivolous, they would help, but they wouldn't pay for everything. And so it was my responsibility to work off the debt. And so in 7th grade, as we've started planning for the big East Coast trip, my parents said, we will give you half. You will earn the rest through whatever means you can find. And since I wasn't quite yet old enough to turn tricks on the street, I decided that I would offer my services to my teachers by washing desks after school and watering plants. Mrs. Flick, my math teacher, took me up on the offer, and she came to be quite fond of me. I was a little bit of a teacher's pet. And so, being the young, single, vivacious teacher that she was, she decided she would give me a Christmas present. But she wasn't quite young enough to know exactly what to get for an 11-year-old, and so she went to the music store, and she said, I need to buy a gift for a young girl. What should I get? And she'd walked out with a cassette tape of Rat. Do you know that this band exists? Because I had never heard of them. R-A-T-T, Rat. And I, accepted it graciously. I was really, happy that she thought of me. But on the bus on the way home that afternoon, I was talking to my friend about how I didn't know what I was going to do with a Rat tape. And these two guys overheard me in this discussion, and they were like, well, we love Rat. Tell you what, I'm going to buy that tape off of you. Now, one of these fellas, his name was Moose. And he was called Moose because when we were in the 4th grade, he already weighed 230 pounds. And his personality really didn't improve over the years of being called Moose. So we made a bargain, $6 for the cassette tape, and we will meet at the beginning of the lunch period the next day. I showed up at my locker, and I stood there with the cassette in hand, and they showed up, the two of them together, and I suddenly realized we're alone in this hall. We should be at the cafeteria already. I should have brought a second to this duel. They took the cassette from me and looked at each other in the eye and took off running without giving me any frickin' money. And I stood there for about 2 seconds, and I thought to myself, am I going to take this, or is it enough? And I just took off running after them. Now, I knew that one had the money in his hand, but they had faked off to make me think that the other one had the money in his hand. And so I ran after the one that I was supposed to think had it. And then at the last minute, in the most athletic feat I've ever done in my life, I launched myself into the air to tackle this guy. Unfortunately, this was not Moose. This was Che, who was a very lithe young man, and he looked back, saw me coming, and ducked down. And so I flew over his shoulders and landed on my face. My glasses flew into the locker, busted my lip open, but the worst part was that I got carpet burn on 40% of my face. 3 days later, I knew that I was going to be having to present about Fibonacci's sequence in math class. And so I decided that I would experiment with makeup, as all girls at that age do. And so I tried covering the oozing wound up with makeup, which of course made it become so infected that it oozed green pus. And so then I decided that I would just do the right thing and spare my audience from this horrific sight and tape a piece of paper over my nose and mouth. The teacher was not going to have it. She yelled at me as I was starting my presentation on Fibonacci's sequence with my little, note cards and my poster of the chambered nautilus. And so I, tears in my eyes, shaking, removed the piece of paper from my face and gave my presentation. And at the end, I heard, a slow building clap for me. And that was the day I overcame the Rednecks.